My topic today is using American Indian legends or stories to teach financial education. And this financial education series is geared more towards youth. However, I have used it with adults, younger adults, and even younger kids. But the kind of the target audience would be like fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh graders. And I'll talk more about that. Um, so I just really briefly, some objectives for our time today is we are going to examine a bit using storytelling as one engaging teaching technique. We're going to review quickly the connection between decision making from a cultural lens. So we understand that a person's community culture, their family culture, their racial and ethnic culture can often influence financial decision making and resource management within the home and within the communities. And then, of course, I hope you all will gain a new appreciation and respect for using storytelling as one tool to teach financial education. So there's a series of 6 lessons called Bushki Gin, and that is Ojibwe for it's up to you, it's your decision. And you will have access through a Z link that Lori will share with you that you're able to go online and download the lessons. So just really briefly, my colleague, Becky Hagen-Jokela, who has retired last year, her and I worked together on a CIFAR grant, and we had a very small piece of the grant. And we were at the CIFAR conference in Washington, D.C., and we love going to museums together. And we found ourselves at the Museum of the American Indian, and we were in the bookstore, which we both love. We spent a long time in there. And she comes up and says, "Jennifer, look at this book." And some of you may be familiar with this. It's called the Mishomis book, and it's geared toward youth. It's written by Edward Benton Benet, who's considered a seminal scholar in Ojibwe culture and history and clan systems and things. And she said, what if we used Ojibwe stories or American Indian stories to teach youth financial education and resource management and decision making and goal setting? And I said, that is brilliant. I said, let's do it. And we just jumped into it. So we developed a series of 6 lessons, and I'll go through those quickly with you. And we piloted the lessons with the Fond du Lac Ojibwe School youth. We did 3 different pilots. I, at the time, was living in Bemidji, and Becky was at the Cloquet Regional Office. I'm actually in her old office now. And sometimes I would come online and do the storytelling part. Sometimes I would be in person, but we did pilot with tribal youth, and they loved it. So many of them said, my grandma told me this story, and they just related. They understood the framework. They loved the activities. They loved the engagement. They could see themselves in the lessons, which is really important for any learner, but especially for young learners. And we just gained a lot of knowledge and information that we were then able to go back and revise lessons and until they got to the point where we were able to share them now. We did state and national presentations. There's been a lot of interest more recently, I think, in using storytelling as a medium to teach financial education and a lot of other topics. We had peer review, we did revisions, and then we did final editing and publishing, which our grant paid for. I do have a number of hard copies, but I think we need to do another printing. So I'm going to try, I wonder how I can move this bar. Let's see. Do we know maybe if I just click on it? No, okay. All right, well, I won't fool with it. I hope it isn't bothering anyone. So the primary work that I have been doing, that I've been really interested in doing, is the intersection between culture and money. And for to give just a bit of context, using stories, traditional stories, some are Ojibwe specific and some are more pan-Indian, like the Three Sisters story we have in here as well. I understood that traditionally storytelling occurred with Ojibwe people while there was snow on the ground. And the reason is that the spirits were sleeping, they were resting while that snow was on the ground. And it was considered impolite to talk about, it would be like talking about your brother, right? Or talking about someone, it was considered impolite. So storytelling traditionally happened during the colder months of the year. However, we do understand that these stories are on the web, people have access to them. When we teach, we do encourage people that if you're able to share these stories while there is snow on the ground, that would be significant. But we have also used these stories throughout all the seasons of the year. There are a lot of tribal differences around storytelling. We being in Minnesota, and me myself, I'm a Boys Fort band member, so I am Ojibwe. I'm pretty Ojibwe centric, and so that was really how we were approaching these lessons. As we started exploring, and I have just a lot of different books that we went through. Of course, we went through the Mishomis book. We went through Ojibwe Tales. Some of you may be familiar with these books. We went through, it's called The Legend of the Lady Slipper. And then one of our seminal pieces of a book that we used is called The Four Hills of Life by Thomas Peacock, Dr. Thomas Peacock. And I also have another stack of books. So it was such a rewarding experience to do some research on different stories and to try to match, because we had a list of financial topics that we wanted to cover, and to try to match stories that we could explore topics within the stories. So here's a picture of some tribal elders, and I believe this is probably in New Mexico. Tribal elders are so important for our communities. They are the knowledge keepers. They pass down language and cultural information, cultural norms, community norms, and historically, it was the elders that would tell stories during the winter time. And here's another picture of inside a lodge. I can't tell if it's a wigwam or a teepee, but inside the lodge. So this is where it all began. And I was familiar with this book many years ago and forgot about it. And Becky brought it to my attention, and this is what got us really excited and jazzed up about using stories to teach financial education. So here is a copy, or a picture of a copy of our booklet, and I do not have one to show you, but it's not a real thick booklet. It's a soft cover, something maybe a little thinner than this, and you're able to easily go online and print it. There's beautiful, beautiful artwork throughout. We had a colleague of ours who worked on the grant that reached out to a family, an artist, and asked permission if we were able to use his artwork throughout the book. And he's Ojibwe, so he gave us the approval. And so that was also something really important. So when I talk with youth, I highlight this artist and say, there are a lot of successful American Indian people. Here's one example. So each lesson of the 6 lessons is laid out in the same way. And this is kind of the introduction to all the lessons, but we wanted it to be extremely user-friendly, teacher-friendly. We didn't want any barriers if a non-native educator or teacher was to use these booklets. Even with non-native students, it's completely appropriate. I have had non-native students in my classes, and they've enjoyed them as well, because we understand that storytelling is a rich part of many different cultural heritages, and so the kids are able to identify. So there are the objectives, the estimated time for the lesson, the materials needed, And here's the background on the lessons. And I'm having a hard time reading the top, so hopefully I'm getting everything. I don't know how to remove this bar. I'm sure it's super easy and I just don't know. So again, this is the lesson overview, references that we used, summary. So this is the first lesson. It's actually our favorite lesson and the one that we usually spend a little bit more time going through with folks. And it's why the porcupine has quills. And again, it's laid out with the objectives, estimated time, the materials, and one other really important piece that we wanted to make sure is to use as many Ojibwe words as we could within each lesson. And I've extracted those words sometimes and done different like whiteboard activities with kids. I'm not fluent in Ojibwe, I'm learning, and a lot of the kids are learning too. They may know some words and some may actually be fluent. And those kids also help the other ones. And so I've done different classroom activities with them. Here's an example of the beautiful artwork. This is the porcupine, and I just can't speak highly enough about how beautiful and how easily these lessons are laid out. So this is getting to the story. So the story is laid out. We have two different parts for reflect and connect. So we do build in a bit of flexibility. So if you have a longer time that you're spending with the kids, you're able to go into part 2. And there are also different activities throughout that I will show you. And then at the very end of each lesson, we have a little chart of the English word, the Ojibwe word, and the pronunciation. And I really encourage people to go to the online dictionary. It's called the Ojibwe People's Dictionary. And most of the pronunciations, they've had first language speakers speak them so you can actually hear them. And me and my son just go on my phone and we listen to, we wonder, how do you say this in Ojibwe? And we just go on and we listen and we repeat. And so that is also a unique component that I think provides the framework in terms of the cultural framework to support the lessons and the learning. Here's an example of an activity. We have a couple of different puzzles that we do. So what we did was we had support staff make us some nice puzzles that were laminated, and then we cut them up and we just keep using those same ones in classes. There's a number of different ways you can use puzzles in small group activities or visiting different tables. It's nice to get the kids moving around. But again, supporting Ojibwe language and supporting the lesson. Let me check my time. Yeah, okay. I'm getting close. Okay, so here's
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, so here's story number 2, Manabuju and the Maple Trees, and this talks about decision making. And again, the beautiful art, the story, it's laid out in the same way. Lesson 3, or I'm sorry, let me go back. I can't recall. We didn't make copies of each page of the book. Okay, so the good decision making is the giant pike legend. And this is a really great story. The stories take, just a few minutes to read, but again, it's built around each lesson is built around the story. Story 4 is about money and resource choices and spending plans. And we use the story, The Three Sisters, which I mentioned, many different tribes have a version of the Three Sisters. So this is not Ojibwe specific. These are out of order, maybe a little bit. Winnebuju and the Wolves is another story. I believe this one is around saving. And the last one is lesson 6, and it's about career exploration using the clan system to help kids to identify their strengths and things that they may be interested in and good at. And This lesson is notably a little different. It's not financial education specific, and I did take that out of Thomas Peacock's book, The Four Hills of Life. And it provides, I think, a little bit more cultural grounding for all of the lessons. And this one is specific to the Ojibwe clans. Um, and this is a picture of a grandmother weaving. And what we really hope to accomplish by developing and sharing these lessons with everyone is that they can help their students, and they could even be adult learners, learn how to weave their own story. What does it mean to have um, your own background, your own values, your own goals in life? How do you weave your own mat that's specifically for you, and that, you know, something that you can build upon and learn and grow? Um, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and Lori can share my email with you all.